This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Rob Barretts is my engineer. How you doing, Rob? You know, when you're looking for something to write about, it's amazing what you find in your own backyard that other people don't even think about, like child smugglers. Who thinks about that? In Arizona, they do, because Indian child smuggling is a problem that Rick Church is very familiar with, and it's the basis for his book entitled White Doe. His main character is Noel Two Horses, a former cop and private investigator who finds himself right in the middle of a child smuggling ring. Rick, I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. What happened in this particular story, anyway, there was a group of Colombian rebels. They referred to themselves as FARC, F-A-R-C. They've been around since the early 80s, maybe even earlier than that. They have been raiding Indian villages in Colombia, burning down the villages, killing the men, taking the babies, and basically they're still doing that. And the reason they're doing that is part of what helped finance their rebellion was the drug trade, growing poppies and turning it into all kinds of illegal substances. And they would take the land from the small tribe, Indian tribes in Colombia. And in this story, two of those Indian babies end up in the hands of the Mexican cartel, which in turn they sell them to young couples in North America that want to adopt but get put on a waiting list. It's a black market for kids.
What made you take an interest in this?
I did a lot of work on the Tohono O'odham reservation as a private investigator, and you get involved with smugglers, and you find out that some of the things that they're smuggling aren't just illegal drugs, but they smuggle children as well. And sometimes, indentured, what you and I would call indentured servants that have to pay an arm and a leg to get into the United States. They got to pay it to somebody, and the people that hold the bill on that literally use them as indentured servants to pay it off. So there's a lot of human skin trade going on our borders. My character, Noel Two Horses, gets involved in it, and one of the individuals that's helping the babies gets frightened when a squad car pulls up to Noel Two Horses bookstore. He panics and he leaves one of the babies in the restroom, takes the other baby with him and hightails it out of the area. And then, of course, Noel Two Horses discovers the baby in his restroom, and he panics because he's not accustomed to being around small children. So, this hasn't happened to any investigators that I'm aware of anyway, but some of them have been asked to help in smuggling people across the border, because of their, yeah, you know.
So, are you still a private investigator?
No, thankfully, I let my license expire on purpose. I decided to get out of the business. Just a retired guy now, working on a series of books. I've got 3 books on Noel Two Horses and his associates right now. This is the first one. The second one is called War Party, and the third one is called Counting Coup. So if you're anywhere in Indian country, you know what counting coup means.
What's it mean?
What it means is that you're actually risking being injured or killed, but you embarrass your enemy by touching them, and that's called counting coup. And hundreds of years ago, the warriors used to do it with a coup stick. They would reach out and touch their enemy instead of killing them, just to embarrass them.
Oh my God.
And that was usually during the height of battle. Those of us that are living in North America, it still affects us.
Right.
And it's just the indigenous population being hung out to dry again, like it was here in North America hundreds of years ago. It's just happening a little further south. And when you think about it, you could get in your car and drive down there within one day. It's not that far away.
Right.
For me, it'd be less than a day, and I'd be in the thick of it.
Well, thanks for elevating this issue for us, Rick. And for those of us a little further away, it's really something we should be aware of. Tim Eichholz was on a swiftboat patrol during the Vietnam War, and the experience inspired him to write Swift Boat Tour of Duty. Now, describe a swiftboat for me, Tim.
A swift boat is a 20-foot long boat that had 6 crew members, and we patrolled the coastal lines and canals and rivers in Vietnam.
And what made you want to write about it?
Basically, my grandchildren wanted to know, Granddad, what did you do in the war?
Oh,
So it was kind of that. And then I met with my skipper during a swift boat reunion one year, and we were talking about what I'd done for them. And he wanted to read what I'd written, and he read it and thought it was pretty good, and added some memories to it that he remembered that I had missed. And he also had gotten a copy of the base's unit log. So I just added it to what we had done, and I went from there, and then I decided to go ahead and publish it.
what were the experiences that stood out for you?
Basically, meeting the people in Vietnam, that what we call the boat people. It's basically the people that made their living off the coast of Vietnam and the riverways and canals, doing fishing and shrimping and what they could to make a living. And then the other part of it was basically just my experiences in Vietnam that I thought were unique, and I wanted to share them.
Like, for instance.
First, the people didn't trust us. Then it was building the trust of the boat people. They became friendly with us, knew that we weren't there to kill them. It was just an experience of building that relationship with them. Once we were patrolling the coastlines, ran into about 20, 25 sampans that were in a restricted area, but they were in close to the shore and refused to come out to us for inspection. And one of them decided to make a run for it and running parallel. And I was ordered to lay some rounds across the bow of the boat to stop them as warning shots to get them to come to us. They refused to do it. And so I was ordered to open up on them and destroyed the boat. And there were about 4 guys in it that I had to kill. And then there was other times we were up rivers, came across known VC villages, ran into what we call our mud banks in the river, got stuck in the river and couldn't get out. And we were deep in VC territory and had to stay in the rivers for almost 12 hours alone, where you could even walk up to the shore from where we were stuck in the boat, either waiting for the tide to come in or waiting for the enemy to come out and just kill us, as we were just sitting ducks out there in the middle of the mud.
What is it that you want people to get out of this book?
Basically, that not all the people were bad in Vietnam, because a lot of the stories that you see on TV about the American soldier in Vietnam was things that we did wrong. We weren't perfect, but we were American soldiers in Vietnam that didn't know who the enemy was because they didn't wear uniforms. They were looked like just regular everyday people. And so many times we didn't know who the enemy was and who friendlies were. So we had to approach everyone as if they were the enemy. And it was scary at times. Not all Vietnamese were bad and not all American soldiers were. The majority of us were good, and the experiences we had were good, and we only did our job there. We weren't warmongers, we weren't baby killers. And coming home from Vietnam at the end of our tour was the worst experience than the war experience.
Yeah, how did it feel coming home? And
Lonely. Wanted to come home to people that wanted to welcome me home, but nobody would. Most of the people were yelling at you, calling you baby killers, spitting on you, everything. And then, it got so bad that at some points that the military said that when you go off base or get home, you can't wear your uniform. You have to wear civilian clothes and try to blend in. You can't be proud of who you are. Don't be proud of what you did, but be proud of who you were and why you were there. And we couldn't do that. And for many of us, that was worse than being there.
it was so unfair. It was such a bad time.
It was.
Well, at least your grandchildren will know and appreciate
Yeah,
you.
I'm going out and talking about it. I've already had sales in Germany and Argentina from people I've met over there. Friends and family and church members here. I'm promoting the book and trying to get some better sales around it. But I would like to sell many copies of it so that people will know the experience. But I really didn't write it to sell a million copies.
Right.
In San Diego, they have a museum out there, and so they will display the book there for people visiting and for other swiftboat sailors to be able to purchase the book.
Some powerful stuff there, Tim, and a real window into what our military went through before and after the war. Thank you. Deborah Rudolph put two of her passions together, her love of Scotland and horror stories, and came up with Castle Lockwind, The Savage Bloodline Part 1, The Coming. Deborah.
The old-fashioned boogeyman, not the modern-day slasher. I read a Stephen King novel and fell in love with horror. In all my life, I've had stories in my head. So I decided to start writing them down as short stories. And one day I said, I can make a novel, not just short stories. So I took one of my short stories and exploded it, made it into a novel. And the book is about a man who has a home improvement stores with his friend who inherits a Scottish castle. He never knew that he was in that bloodline. And he decides, what the heck, go to Scotland and inherit this castle. And of course, being a builder, he loved renovating. And things happened, and he awoke an evil presence that was sealed for millennia. And he invites his friend to come over for Christmas, and they experience all kinds of phenomena and have to end up battling this evil. It's going to be a trilogy.
So your main character gives up his business, goes over to live in Scotland and to live in a wonderful castle, and he gets sidetracked by these demons. So is his MO to just get rid of the demons and live happily ever after?
Well, he wants to protect his estate. He wants to protect his friends. This is now his home, and he wants to stay there. And this evil presence isn't going to go away on its own. There has to be a battle. So he battles it, and there are many main characters. Immortal warriors, there is a sorcerer, there is a shapeshifter. They continue the trilogy. There is his son, and there is the gentleman's gentleman, who is a lineage that stays with the castle. So there's a lot of characters that continue the story throughout the trilogy. I do have a Facebook page. I have my own store, my own shop, so I do sell the book at my shop.
What kind of shop?
A sound and light relaxation therapy shop, and it has a retail store with it, which is the part that I run, where you can get incense and sage and stones and crystals and candles, a little of everything for the people who might be coming in for therapy sessions.
Right. Nice. So are people buying your book?
Yes. Well, my family. I do have a BAM very close to me that eventually I might go over and ask if they'd like to do a book signing.
Okay.
I just wanted to tell a story, and I wanted people to enjoy reading my story. I really didn't do this to become famous and
right.
and everything. I have stories to tell. It's entertaining for me to write, and I absolutely love when someone's reading my book and asking me questions. Yeah, and they can come into my store and I'll sign their book.
Where's your store?
The store's in Lingelstown, Pennsylvania. It's a small little historical town near Harrisburg.
Okay.
Outside of Harrisburg.
All right, Lingelstown, Pennsylvania. Make a note of it. We have to take a very quick break, but there's so much more coming up. Stay with us. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books, and unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them, and they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Michael DeStefano is a C5 engine mechanic who de-stresses by writing and composing music. His challenge was to write a story that was unique while encompassing history, a good mystery, and his music. The name of his book is The Composer's Legacy. So where did the Odyssey begin?
It was about 2010. I think we were talking about how Hollywood is so bereft of originality. You know, they're recycling old heroes, old comic books, that kind of thing. So I had this idea. What if Johannes Brahms never published a note until after his death, and he bequeathed all his music to another person? And then that person in today finally discovered this music. Well, that was the idea. This person here had a family. He was married to a beautiful pianist, concert pianist. He had a cellist son and a violinist son. So there's your trio. They knew their father could write music, but because of his military obligations, he chose to wait until after he retired so that he had plenty of time to write the music he promised to write them. The day he retired from the military, his family was murdered in a random act of violence. So he did not have anyone to go ahead and bequeath his estate that had been in continuous family hands since 1724. So he decided he was going to write the music he promised he'd write them. So over the next 19 years of his life, he wrote over 200 pieces, the quality of the great composers, but he would not publish a single note. He waited until he tried to find the right person who could evaluate his work, see if it was any good, and then if it was, to go ahead and make it public. But he also said that if the music was bad or wasn't of any value, he said, just burn it. Well, we start the book off when David Whaley and his student orchestra had a magnificent Christmas concert season. And all of a sudden he gets a notice. He received an unexpected inheritance from a complete stranger from the other side of the country. And he thinks it's a joke. But there's also this unusual correspondence that looks like it was made in the 18th century, complete with the way it was folded, and it was wax stamped. The stamp is unusual because it looks like a lopsided butterfly. Well, it's not a lopsided butterfly, and it actually goes toward the end of the book. There's a little reveal where his foil, Dr. Carla Macklin, she is 10 years his junior, but she is more Mycroft Holmes to his Sherlock.
Okay. All right, so it's kind of a mystery unfolding here.
Yes. When we had that dinner, Christmas of 2010, my niece asked about the different book ideas, and she goes, this is interesting. A guy who from California, music professor, receives an unexpected inheritance of unpublished music from a complete stranger from Delaware. You write music, why don't you include your music? Well, okay, I can probably do that. But as I was writing the book, and as I was writing the character of James Burton West, it became very apparent to me that this guy's a much better composer than I am.
That's funny.
The whole thing is when I came up with the idea of the book, I wanted to showcase music that I had written. And the book comes with 8 original pieces that I wrote. All you have to do is go to the website to listen to it. librettipress.com/books.
Okay.
And for my book signings, when I have book signings, I'll have the CDs that go with the books.
All right, Michael, thank you very much. Melissa James has been writing as a hobby since she was a little kid, and now she's ready to start publishing. The name of her first book is A Matter of Pride. Melissa.
It takes place shortly before the Civil War. The young girl wants to be, the belle of the ball, and she's in love with the most eligible bachelor. But financial situations was to have an arranged marriage, and family loyalty is important. So she agrees to the arranged marriage, even though the guy that she's supposed to marry is somebody she really, has no feelings for, or is even kind of afraid of him because of his reputation and that kind of thing.
What's his reputation?
When the people told the story, it made him sound like he was an ogre or a pervert, and really he wasn't. But when people tell stories or repeat things that they hear, the gossip, the stories change. And so, of course, she heard the wrong version and, made her kind of intimidated.
She has to decide whether she's going to be honest with the guy that she loves or whether she's going to follow through with this arranged marriage.
Well, also because it's a matter of pride, and the guy she marries, he doesn't communicate what his real feelings are. You can't always judge from gossip and that kind of thing, and people need to communicate true feelings and things like that.
Do people know that you write?
Yeah, my close friends know.
Yeah. And
I was able to get some copies, so, like my gym buddies signed it for them. My daughter's really excited, so she's been telling everybody on Facebook.
How many books have you written?
I would say maybe 10.
That are just been laying
and
around.
Like I said, it's all free time, and this was during when I was working and taking care of the kids when they were little, and a house and all that kind of stuff. So it took me a while to write these things.
And then just put it away?
Yes. And it isn't always easy. Oh, I got a few minutes, let me write, because you got to get back into it. You got to get back into the characters and the settings, and you can't just say, well, I got 10 minutes, let me write something.
Right.
It has to.
Was it always with the intent that one day you would finally get them published?
I had hoped, yeah, because at one point I was trying to send them out, and I would get a lot of rejections. But then there was a couple that sent me back. They would send me some kind of comments. They would say, well, if you make it more strictly romance, then maybe we could do something with it. One of my first ones was a romantic mystery, and the editor had said, well, if you make it like this, we could sell it to Harlequin. But Harlequin is strictly romance. Boy meets girl, they have a fight, and then somehow they get back together. And mine was a mystery. So I said, how does he want me to change it to be strictly a romance?
Well, you know what? That's more than a lot of people get. Most people get nothing. Absolutely nothing. So.
Right. Yeah, they just get a note and say, no, we can't use it at this time.
Right. Right. So now you've found like a whole new career.
Yeah.
Finally, Ambushed is the name of Lisa Walker's first published book about a guy who moves from the Buckeye State to the big city only to meet a raven-haired beauty who leads him down a dark and dangerous path. Lisa, what was your inspiration?
I like suspenseful movies, and I like plot twists. And one day I happened to have been watching a movie that inspired, that particular type of action to be happen. Because it usually it happens at the beginning of the book, and then the story progresses. It's about what he does about it.
You were just watching a movie one day, and you were inspired to write this book, Ambushed.
Well, sure. Inspiration can come from anywhere,
Who he?
His name is Jericho. He's from Ohio. But he moved into the city, and he ended up getting married, and then he got divorced. While he was waiting for his divorce to become final, he met a woman. And then right after he meets this woman is when he was attacked, and he ended up in the hospital. And there were no leads on his case whatsoever. The police couldn't come up with a suspect. And then he saw something that changed everything for him. And then the police dropped his case. They no longer were investigating what happened to him. And then he decided to take matters into his own hands. And he ended up finding someone to help him. He called it justice, but it was probably more revenge than anything else.
What did he do to the guy?
Well, he kind of did what he did to him what was done to him.
He bashed him in the head with a baseball bat.
He ended up moving out of New York. He moved to Florida, and then trouble found him in Florida.
So trouble follows this guy, huh?
It did. You know how you see sometimes that things happen and then people get blamed for what happens?
Right.
And then the person, oh, well, I'm going to get even with him, and that's the last thing I do type. It's all your fault that this happened to me, you know?
Right.
That's what happened with this story. It's a plot twist in there.
So,
and I love plot twists. And I hate to give away the whole story, too. But
okay.
Yeah. I wrote this a little while ago when I wasn't working. And
you just decided to get it published now.
It takes a while. Finding the right people definitely takes it. Because before that, no one would listen to me.
Yeah. So you got it published by Page. That had to feel good.
It did. It really does. You know, I wrote this one, and I wrote another one, and I'm going to get that one. I'm hoping to get that one published too. And different characters, different. You know, just different books, different stories.
Okay. Are you enjoying the writing experience?
Oh, I love it. I love to write. I have ideas for other books, and I just want to keep doing it. It's fun.
Well, that's good, Lisa. Fun is good. Why do it if it isn't fun? But you know what? It's a whole lot of work, too, especially if you're trying to weave a story through history. You want to get all of your facts straight. You know, we don't have the time to air all of the interviews that we do in full, but I have authors describe for me in great detail the amount of time they spend researching and reading historical texts and digging up family histories and the lengths that they go to try to make their books as historically accurate as possible. It's painstaking, truly a labor of love. But you know what? It's like anything else. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And I hope you got something out of tonight's show. Don't forget, you can download us anytime you want and listen as often as you want at 710wor.iheart.com. Or you know what? You can always join us next week. Same time, same place. For the Page Publishing Book Club, I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Have a good week.